Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, we're going to be talking about the Texas restaurant economy with the leading expert in the state. She is the president and CEO of the Texas Restaurant Association. That's next.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, I cannot imagine an industry with more grit than the restaurant industry. It has really taken it on the chin, and they just keep coming back. To talk about that today, Dr. Emily Williams-Knight. She is the president and CEO of the Texas Restaurant Association. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I admire you so much because, I mean, when you took over this position, there was no thought of a pandemic.
No.
And now suddenly you're thrust into, I mean, you have to have the answer.
Absolutely.
To something that nobody had a playbook for.
Yeah, you know, if you go back to January 1st, and I think it's almost hard to go back to January 1st, we had 50,000 restaurants in Texas, 1.3 million employees, about $70 billion to the economy. And we were actually projected 2020 to be the best year ever for restaurants. And so when March 20th occurred at midnight, which is when we were officially closed those dining rooms, I think the world changed forever. But nobody could have seen this coming. Even in the early months of January, February, little tail end of February when Hoboken, New Jersey, early March closed, we had a sense. But honestly, if you now go fast forward 7 months, we are in this pandemic and we still are not at 100% capacity.
Well, tell me, I mean, there had to be some sleepless nights for you in the early days.
Unbelievably sleepless. So when this first hit, the governor's office called to say we're going to close dining rooms. And at that point, it was almost better because they had been doing a piecemeal approach. So Amarillo would close, Dallas wouldn't, Collin County would have an 8 o'clock curfew, El Paso was fine. And so when he came out and said, that's it, we're going to close it all, it kind of gave us about 48 hours to think about what's next. If you're a restaurant that didn't have a drive-through, you didn't have carry-out, what were you going to do? So the first thing we did, which I think we're probably known for now, is pass that alcohol to go executive order. So you could roll up to this, to a restaurant, get your enchiladas, 2 margaritas, safely packaged, out the door you went. And so we went into this very hyper mode of working with the governor's office to get executive orders to essentially keep our restaurants alive. And that was the sole focus, keep Texans fed and keep this industry alive.
And we were talking off camera about how closely you've been working with the governor's office. And I love your approach. I mean, this is a governor who is in a crisis.
Absolutely.
And you don't want to be that person who is adding to his problems.
We just didn't want to be agitators early on. We knew that he was a pro-business governor. He loves restaurants. We knew that was also true. And so we just sort of trusted that if we partnered with him and his team, and really we work hand in hand with his team who've been great, and we stepped through this, there were so many unknowns, but when they were trying to get PPE and ventilators and hospital equipment, it wasn't our place to be extraordinarily difficult, right? And I look at where we are compared to the nation and our opening, and we are one of the top 3 to 5 states. And so I think we've played this very well, and more importantly, it's been a partnership, and that means that it's a lot of communication. And there's not things that, some things we don't have yet, but it's a dialogue, and I think that's been critical. And so we've had that from day one.
Well, there's a wonderful video that you produced, and let's go ahead and roll that now. Wow. That was emotional, and I have to let the audience in. She's probably seen this 100 times.
At least it still makes me emotional.
Yeah, it was beautifully written. Did you write it yourself?
Yeah, the team and I wrote it, and we really were trying to convince the legislature, both in Washington and here in Texas, that restaurants mattered, that we were hurting. And the only way we could think about it is to go out, and actually we had one of our own employees go capture those pictures, those restaurants that had already closed. And we've lost about 15% of our Texas restaurants since March. If Congress doesn't act this week, it'll be another 10%. So 25% of 50,000 livelihoods, we think that matters.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That probably is tough. I mean, it was tough for me. I drove by a couple of restaurants today that were shuttered, and
think this is the best way I can say it is we're 7 months into a crisis that we didn't create. And we had first closures that were mandated by the government. Then we have capacity caps and very expensive health protocols, which honestly, restaurants don't mind investing that money, but they've had to convert their patios, delivery, curbside, making sure their employees are safe, right? For all of this, we have 8 weeks of congressional support. 8 weeks. Now, I don't know, you pick me a human being who would think that that's a fair outcome for our restaurants. And so, we won't give up. We've told our restaurants to go back, focus on your business, let us fight for you, which is what we're doing. And our hope is the Senate tomorrow is going to vote on a bill. It should include some help for us. We'll see, but that's where we're at right now, or we'll lose more restaurants.
Yeah. Well, look into your crystal ball. What do you see? We're seeing in some states kind of a resurgence. I think we're still pretty safe here in Texas.
We are. I like to tell everyone, restaurants are not the cause of the spread, right? There's no evidence that we're an easy target. We're ubiquitous. Every state has a restaurant. Every little town has a restaurant. So if you're trying to fix the problem, the first place you go is to the largest entity. So let's just go to restaurants. But we know that's not the cause. The CDC has not even said it's the cause. And so, I think 2 things are going to happen. One is we have to have a great next legislative session. So we're working on solidifying alcohol to go, retail to go. Those things are going to matter long term. Curbside and delivery, restaurants have got to make that pivot. Curbside and to-go food has not dipped at all as restaurant dining rooms have reopened. And I think you're going to see the resurgence really of technology, or maybe the insurgent of technology, be no longer a nice to have, but it's a necessity. And so that guest has got to be able to interact with you on their mobile phone, be able to order from you, and sort of a much more, user experience has mattered now more than ever. And so, I think all those things will come together. We're going to make it, right? I mean, we're 51% of the food dollar in the state of Texas. We're going to make it. But our job is to make sure we don't have as many casualties as predicted today.
Yeah, I remember when I first moved to Dallas in '92, the news director said, there's only 2 things you need to know about Dallas: eating and shopping. Any questions?
All right, and drinking now, right? Eating, drinking, and shopping.
Right? And that really, your video put it perfectly, that, all of our favorite memories.
Think about anything in life. I even say to people, your divorce, your separation, it's all the good stuff, and also where you go sometimes just to be in community. And honestly, what we haven't talked about yet is what happens if we lose the dining experience, the discourse that we have, the kindness we show each other when we disagree on topics. If you eliminate that entirely and people are just left to sit on their own, what does that do to us as a culture?
Right.
That's the thing I think you really can't lose long term. It's the finances, but it's also the sort of the emotional and cultural part that a restaurant plays in a community and the people they employ. We still have 250,000. You saw it in the video. We had 700,000 employees. We still have 250,000 that are not working.
Wow.
That's too many people.
And you have a very strong association with chapters all over the great state of Texas. We're going to show a map to show you just where your chapters are. And this is a big state.
Big state. I certainly can't drive it. I wanted to drive it when I first took the job, and I was like, well, that's kind of not really smart.
When you talk to other restaurant association
some of my friends up northeast, Connecticut and Rhode Island, they're amazing, and they all have their own issues. But I think what's great is we all work together. And then in the state, we work together. So we just had our board meeting where every chapter is represented. And we came together in San Antonio 3 weeks ago, and we had 80 people there.
Really?
And social distance, of course, but 80 people talking about the future of the industry. And so every single region of this state is represented at the state level.
Well, I had the pleasure of working with you guys many years ago to get you some publicity, and just great people.
Great people.
Who, sometimes it's everything from a large chain to a mom and pop, and the kind of the can-do spirit is alive.
And that's why we're going to make it. I had someone ask me, Emily, what if restaurants don't make it? And I said, well, 1, I can't go there because my job is to lead us forward. And 2, do we really think that we take that bet? You mentioned the word grit. This is the grittiest, most entrepreneurial, hardworking, savvy, creative group of people you could pick in any industry. So if I was going to bank on it, but our job really is let's let it be as less painful as we can. Like let's let this journey at some point. We've got to get out of the pain, because right now they're still serving you food, but many of them aren't making $1, right? They're not even break even, but they're doing it because they want to keep their business. And so we've just got to make the turn. And thank goodness we're not in the Northeast or the Midwest where it's starting to snow and outdoor dining is limiting. We can still go outdoors here in Dallas, right? I think we're going to be okay. I'd bet on us.
Well, I think God put you in the right place at the right
100%.
time. Not only are you just articulate, intelligent, you have the emotional heart
Absolutely.
to lead
I
an
love these
association
people.
where stress can bring out the best or the worst in people, and
Yes.
unfortunately you've had a chance to kind of rally the troops, and everybody's working together.
Yeah, and I say when we come together, this is it's a roar, right? Your single voice, a single eatery staying on the corner yelling for help isn't heard. But when you take the entire state, I mean, we at one point, we had sent the comptroller. Even when you're new, you'll try anything. And I thought, well, we need to get his attention because we need to get some help. And so we dropped about 50,000 emails in about a 12-hour period.
Wow.
He wasn't happy. But it started the relationship and allowed us to have a conversation for him to know, hey, we really need help, right? And so we've been doing a lot of that to make sure our elected officials know that this industry is one of the biggest. I think it was $7 billion in tax revenue last year. We matter.
That's awesome. Give me some thoughts about the next coming months. I mean, are you sleeping better at night?
Maybe not sleeping better, but maybe the session is going to be key, right? Our legislative session is going to be very different. But we've got it. There's a number of things that have worked for restaurants that we've been able to secure that we've got to have become law. And so we already have bills in drafting. We have people to carry those bills. We are very laser focused on that next session and making sure that some of the good things that we've been able to really achieve on behalf of the restaurants, that we lock them in forever. People have to remember getting that margarita to go is only under an executive order.
Yeah.
So that's a big, so that helps me. We have control and we have a lot of support. And then federally, we just need Congress to act. It is unconscionable that we are stuck in partisan politics. They must do their job and act, and they have this week to do it.
Okay, we're almost out of time. So final thoughts, and how can the public support you?
Yeah, I think most important is don't take your local eatery for granted. You've got to get in there. So go buy a gift card and use it later, right? Give them some liquidity right now to use. Dine in, curbside, take out, have a meal, but do not forget about that restaurant. Make it part of your weekly schedule with your family, because if you don't, they will not be there.
Wow. Emily, you've been amazing. We're going to put the website up to end the segment. TexasRestaurant.org, TXRestaurant.org is the website. Dr. Emily Williams-Knight, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
You bet. And that's it for now. We'll see you next time.